Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of reading the frequently asked questions for Starbase. And whew, I am tired, man. It's going to take us a long time. Honestly, the game might actually be, it might be fall, and it might be released by the time I read through these. But I've been talking about a lot of each of the frequently asked questions, giving some of my thoughts and opinions on them, as well as other things I've learned about them. So hopefully my knowledge has been helping you guys learn a lot more than just what is, shown here. For those who want like the most in-depth, you can imagine information. This is probably good stuff for like the car trip to work or something. Anyways, here we go. What is the game starting area? So these are examples given. I'm not going to even bother going too far into the reading at all, but here it says the planet itself, the area is already more than 10,000 kilometers in radius in terms of existing content you'll be able to travel. So this is the belt, and it's cut off in this picture, but this entire belt goes around, and this belt is, I believe, I don't know if it says here, there's a picture here which is open in a new tab. Let me guess, not the tab I want. Anyways, I wonder if I can drag it over here. No. Okay, we'll just have to... Can I drag it over here? No. Can I copy the link? There we go. I can copy the link. Yes, we're getting somewhere. Okay, it's not even big enough to see. Let's copy this one here. So I'm looking on the side monitor here just to give you confirmation on this. So the planet, and zoom out. Okay, so basically this is the safe area here, and it's 1,000 out from here, so you can see this would fit in here. So actually the asteroid belt is a little thicker than I remembered. It looks like it's 1,000 basically out, and it's round. There's a word for it, T something. Taru, I forget. I'm not really good at it, but it's basically it's a donut shaped asteroid belt, and it's really big. This was an idea of a safe zone example, but it was more of an example of the size and a station being here, like a capital station. A lot of people mistook this as the safe zone area and just assumed that, but instead it's going to be probably more like small splotches. And then there's an example here of how tiny this is compared to here, and giving you an idea how big this is. So this is literally 1,000 radius here. So this is a 2,000 by 2,000 kilometers in size. Your ship, the fastest ship you can make possible, is 150 meters a second. You do the math how long it takes to go all the way around this, then you understand. Holy hell. Yeah, really big. So it gives you an idea. This is the planet, of course, and eventually they'll add moons. You can go out in deep space. So, looking at my cursor way over here, you can survive here if you can have the propellant to get out there, but there's no asteroids or materials out at this point, only at the belt here. So yeah, we scaled it based on the estimate player amount, current 5 mega stations and 20 smaller. Also, main plan is to utilize players to create more stations, which after early access that'll happen. 2,000 kilometers is overkill thickness of the asteroid belt. Okay, so it's 2,000 kilometers is the overall thickness. I thought I said the overkill. It is a bit overkill, but it's the overall thickness. Sorry. It's also, we learned the numbers, 95 trillion asteroids. People have done the math a million times, and yeah, you're never going to be able to mine everything, especially even if you would, there would be content after content of new actual space, solar systems, the galaxy itself, etc., added to the point where it wouldn't even matter if you could even chop through all this belt. Do the devs have any ideas or plans for planetary bases? So, once planet landing is possible, more likely moon landings in early stage as they're easier with no atmosphere, etc., then there's nothing stopping players from creating such outposts. So that is really awesome. And I even talked about a hint of some sort of like owning a moon and things like that. And it almost sounded like Lori kind of wanted such a thing. He didn't go into any kind of details, but it almost sounded like that would be a kind of a cool idea way down the road. I'm assuming when there's lots of new moons added and things like that. About planets you asked earlier, I've been prototyping landable planets, but cannot make promises whether and when we would have them. So keep in mind, some of the devs were more touchy on what they say at the time. They weren't sure if they should say everything or what. They got transparency, but I guess they were being more cautious at this point. Further, as time went on, it was like almost like an indefinite, moons are going to exist. This is going to exist. This is going to happen. So, yeah, there was one point where they were talking more like, you know, we're hoping to have it. Now it's more like it's going to happen. It's just kind of when. What about moons? We want to have, oh, and that by the way, that was planets. That wasn't moons. So planets, I should, you know, state this was talking about planets and not the moons themselves. So planets are more up in the air, but pretty sure planets are also happening. But doesn't mean moon can't be a planet either with, you know, a lush environment. So what about moons? We have to, we want to have moons and such. Reaching them is a huge objective for the large player base. Reaching moons and landing on them will be an objective for the whole player base. So this is kind of interesting. Why isn't it an objective and like a big objective for the whole player base? Is there something interesting on these moons? Is there a new type of resource? Is it kind of like a tech or tiered up? Would this get us started to being able to make, like, say, jump gates or anything like that? Like, it kind of makes you think, like, what is the big objective here? I even personally thought of, you know, it could be the first signs of some sort of organic life that exists in the universe. You never know. Will the moon be on the far side of the belt? Yes, it's way out of the picture shown above. So this picture, and it would be way further out. So you can see the distance here. You can see there's a distance here. So the idea is if it's further out, you're going to have to make a really decent ship with a lot of propellant. Propellant's used as like the main fuel to get around. So that sounds really cool if you have to go out far. What happens if you fly in the gas giant? So right now you basically burn and crash, and I think it grows, right? Real planet in the sense that you get closer, it gets larger, etc. Yeah, so it's basically a big you know, texturized. Maybe I haven't really paid attention to much. Probably an animated sphere that basically is just like literally a circle object, and the closer you get to it, the more you'll start taking damage, or maybe it just happens right there and then boom, you die kind of thing. You're not going to be able to land on it, or in a sense get close probably to the point where you're landing on it, maybe, but I assume it's just going to have like an outer radius where you'll just burn when you get too close. Are there safe zones for trading, like trading hubs, etc.? Things for like trading hubs, etc. Okay, so the starting areas are safe. You can trade in the starting areas and build some, even. Not sure how far the area extends, but mining might be slightly at your own risk. So as far as we know, this is not as much the case anymore. It does sound like you'll be able to mine, you know, into the asteroid belt. That being said, there might be less rare resources in that area, etc., but it does sound like you should be able to actually PvE, I say PvE, but safe zone mine without too much risk. Can players establish their own safe zones? Well, it's partially a complex thing and partially not designed yet, but essentially I'm looking for a system where factions can team up and form a safe zone themselves and then build on their own safe zone. So I'm really excited about this. We don't know much about it, honestly. Give me a second. So we don't know much about this, and I'm really, really hoping that it's more like it's kind of a mix of Eve, like owning territory and being able to protect it, and maybe there is certain like large objects that people can destroy and fight kind of to take it out. Maybe outside of the safe zones, there's like say 8 pillars, and if all 8 pillars take a substantial amount of damage, and it could be shielded or protected or something, then it could take it out in the safe zone. It has to be in a way that it can't be done in 5 minutes. It has to be done, you know, over many, many, many hours and take a lot of resource. I'm not sure how it works. Maybe it doesn't work that way, but I do hope over time there is some way to make a safe zone, but also maybe take over those safe zones, but not, you know, in a heartbeat. You know, I want it to be a long and grueling process, even if it's more like a sort of like, okay, they've taken over, like maybe they've taken out the, you know, like what I just said, you know, these 8 pillars, for example, and you have, you know, 24 or 72 hours to evacuate kind of thing before the safe zone actually kind of, you know, gets crispy, you know, it just blows up and doesn't exist. So, you know, like it's not a safe zone and anything can be shot and blown up, etc. So I don't know how that works, but it is something I want, but at the same time, I don't want it to be, you know, oh, that way, you know, it makes PvP crappy, but also I don't want to make it where those people who are not into PvP also have a crappy time. So there's got to be a good balance there. Are abandoned ships and shipwrecks persistent? Any ship that's intact is unlikely to stay in space for long. I think we have some login and logout stuff maybe too that prevents that. But if not, a player will come and take it. Probably any ship or debris wreck, though, they could be scooped by another player. Okay, so it says it's unlikely to stay in space for a long time. As far as I know, this is true and not true. Depends, I guess, on your respect on time. Depending on the size of the object, I believe they have a time life, basically, or half-life, I guess you could say, in space. But it sounded like it could last a couple of weeks, to be honest, a piece of debris, if it was large enough of a ship. So let's just say you had a battle and there was debris sitting out there. You know, you can come back a few days later and the debris would still be in the same spot. That being said, finding the debris randomly in space might be kind of hard and impossible. I honestly, personally believe a scavenging job would be an awesome feature to add at the big stations. In a sense, if there's no way to find debris outside of your, you know, your render distance, maybe if a debris is about to despawn, say 24 or 48 hours before, for example, you can pick up a job at a local mega station or even any station maybe, and it'll point you to a random debris within, say, it has to be a certain distance away, but also a certain distance within, so it's not stupidly far. And, you know, you don't know what's there, kind of, but it has like a mass limit, so, or a mass, you know, minimum limit, so you know, there's something worthwhile to go there. You're not wasting your time, but at the same time it could be, you know, small to extremely large, but it's not going to be like a tiny piece of shuttle that got destroyed and nothing left almost. But it'd be cool as a new job to be added, I think. How will you prevent safe areas becoming too cluttered? Okay, the main thing to keep building areas uncluttered is lots. You rent a lot. You have, then you get the rights to use the station designer in that lot and lay out your blueprints. You can then, with the help of your friends, if desired, fill out the blueprints with materials. So this is a good quote that at first I didn't see this, and then they showed the video of you renting basically a station hangar and building with the blueprint manager. I'm like, where did they get the parts for that? Like, how does that work? That seems cheating. And then somebody says, oh, no, you fill it out. It's kind of like, basically, they're empty. You know, it's like a blueprint, maybe a holographic kind of thing, and then you fill it up. And then I thought, oh, okay, that's not so bad. For the longest time, I thought, oh, no, like, are they somehow cheating such a system? Like, how is that working? But we're kind of fine. Okay, so what would happen to a large group of griefers that spawn camps the safe zone? That is prevented technically by, but also forbidden to even try. Some spawn camping is perfectly legit. For example, if another faction is capturing an entire station, it's normal to kill everyone and capture the spawns. But of course, safe zone camping are prevented, and trying to circumvent that leads to Saltberia time. I'd imagine they would find themselves destroyed by the Imperial Army and sent to Saltberia, where camping is perfectly okay. So Saltberia, in my sense, sounds like it's the cheaters version of Grand Theft Auto 5. So you probably heard that if you cheat in Grand Theft Auto 5, you're sent to basically a cheater version of the lobby and stuff. You play with other cheaters only, which probably is a horrifying experience because I assume people are hacking and doing all sorts of crappy things. I think the Saltberia is sort of the same thing, but I think if you actually exploit and cheat and hack, you're probably going to get a ban hamper. But if you're being an asshole, total jerk, then you get sent here probably for a time period. It's sort of like a jail command that you've probably seen in like a Minecraft server, things like that, or you played World of Warcraft, you just get banned temporarily, right? Well, this is something like that in a sense where you can still play, but you're in a big timeout, basically. So, kind of cool. What about too much debris and space and junk? If wreckage we plan on cleaning the ships away after a certain amount of time passed, basically, which I told you about. The next starting, we are next starting to experiment what keeps from shipwrecks, but the default is to have major chunks forever-ish, i.e. someone salvaged and clean them up. Now, they say forever-ish. This is kind of interesting because I just said, you know, a couple weeks, but here they're saying forever. And then we saw another quote that kind of made it sound like they wouldn't stay around. But I guess if it's a large amount of mass, you know, like it's, you know, even better materials than, say, what an asteroid is. The idea is they turn them into a solid non-moving object anyways in space, right? It just gets stored in the database. So I can almost see them storing large objects in the database. Why not? Because, you know, even years later, somebody can just randomly roll to it and find this wreckage and have something to salvage. So that could be kind of really cool, honestly. Is the world continuous? Is that to me it sounds contagious. Continuous, I think. No, contagious. I don't know. Can I fly straight from one end to the other? The world is big. You can technically fly from one end to the other around the planet, but from one planet to another is a little far. Okay, so of course we don't know much about one planet to another in a sense, except the moon idea. But the idea here is that you could probably fly to another planet if somehow you had the resources, were able to get all the way there. But more than likely, you wouldn't be able to store enough propellant to do that. Even if you made like the Death Star, which was nothing but pure propellant, you'd probably still not be able to make it. But I guess what the devs are saying is it is built in a way that it is completely continuous, that I guess technically it should be possible. What's the render distance of ships and stations? So currently stations are 20 kilometers, ships are 5 kilometers. We're in a process of increasing station distance. 5 kilometers for ships means already a tiny dot often. So this is kind of interesting. I don't know how the game's going to work, but I really don't know how you can find a station, because there's the radio system that only does, I think, up to 30 kilometers. So I just don't understand how you find your way in space at this point. So, and I did try to ask on Reddit, and I tried to get a reply from one of the devs, and at this time I didn't get a reply, and they even replied to another thread, which usually they're really good at replying all the new threads. So I have a feeling, I really have a feeling that the devs are kind of holding off on that information. If that's part of the UI that still has to be developed, I'm not sure, but kind of interesting. Will ships move like in real life spaceships or like aerodynamic planes? Well, neither, for sure. Oh, it just says neither right there. Okay, so neither. Our space has drag. You probably notice I'm not, I'm so focused. I think that's my ADHD. I get focused on one thing. I don't see ahead. So you probably, like, I get surprised when I read one line down. It's like, oh, neither. Neither. Our space has drag. Neither. Our space has drag, so stuff flows down unless it's being pushed by something. But other than the thruster's position and so on, move them like you would expect. So basically, the idea is drag is to prevent, you know, lag. It's also adds, you know, things like being able to use propellant as fuel. Because if you didn't have, you know, the drag, you could just set your max speed and just, you know, let the, you know, turn off your engines and just glide, in a sense, coast, right? And that makes propellant kind of useless, etc., etc. So this kind of makes, you know, like the fuel economy huge, and it also adds a lot of other gameplay changes as well for like PvP, shooting the thrusters of a ship and then letting it slow down and be able to board an actual fight. Trying to board another ship at 150 kilometers, you know, is going to be, or sorry, 150 meters a second is going to be next to impossible, right? So, yeah, I like the idea. How big is the world? Infinite, really large. My mantra, though, a lot of the procedurally generated universe work has been space is big. The starting game in EA state will be around one planet with a really large playable area. I think the asteroid ring is blah, blah, blah. It's currently 2,000 kilometers wide, and the planet is about 6,000 kilometers in radius. And the distance from the surface of the planet to the ring, I forget about that distance again. Now, as far as I know, it is pretty much infinite, because you can fly out into deep space just for fun, and you can survive. So, well, you can only survive if you have enough propellant to get back, or whatever, or how much stuff you have out there. But the point is, you can go out in deep space. Is there any warp light speed in the game? Not at early access, and technically we have warp gates. It's very easy to develop, just need to decide how to introduce them to the world right. I've been thinking about it would require both ends. Some brave explorers need to actually go slowly to another end and set up the gates there. Please, Lori, I beg you, I will I don't know what I could give you because I don't have much in my own life, but I would give you anything to have that feature. I really like this. This here is what I want. Being able to, even if it takes a month, let's say the moon gets introduced, right? Or, yeah, it gets introduced, or it's going to be introduced in, say, 4 weeks from now, and it would take you 6 weeks to get towards that area kind of thing. People can start heading out. Maybe they can give us a clue. People can head out, you know, towards it. Or they can even put like a crappy model in the game where you can't land on it, but you can go towards it at least and get an idea. And then people can slowly work their way towards the moon. I think that would be amazing. I think it would be the most awesome thing. And it might be even fun too, because maybe you'll come across another ship and like steal their propellant, leave them, you know, drifting. It's kind of like the... was it Voyager? Was it the Expanse Voyager it was called? Where it was like that whole place and everyone was stealing everything and it was like a really hostile place? Or no, that was a bad side effect. I think it was like a creature's belly. But the idea anyways is like pure chaos in between, you know, the belt and the moon. Because people are like stealing their propellant to get further. But I'm so into warp gates. I'm not into warping. Warp gates are very easy to program. Some people ask me about that, and I said, "No, it's easy to program." They're like, "How do you know? You're not a developer." And it's like, no. It's literally basically taking the ship itself and putting it from one coordinate to another. I mean, there's not, you know, the fancy and special things and the looks of it. That's what makes it, you know, a little harder to code, honestly. But the teleportation of it from point A to point B is next to nothing. And actually, a developer replied and said exactly what Kane said, basically. So, yeah, warp gates are definitely going to be probably a thing in the game. I'm not looking forward to jump drives, things like that. I think Laurie even said that, you know, he would like an external version. So I guess if you did have like a jump drive or something like that, it'd still be external, which to me it seems just like warp gates. But maybe he was looking at more like, you know, you know, maybe it's like a heavy mass that you can attach to your ship and then you can't fly with it, so you got to leave it around, and maybe you can actually set it to a different location. But personally, I like the idea of going to point A to point B, setting up 2 gates and using that, and I think that would be wonderful. Is the sun part... okay, so is the sun part of the skybox or a real object? It's actually several things, but it can move separately from the skybox. We have some awesome dynamic skybox text. So, and this one says, how long is a day cycle? So currently, test values are a day cycle is 2 hours, and a year cycle of 3 months. So that's pretty cool. So I want to say the day cycle here and the sun is basically the sun, the star. It's a sun if you live in that area, by the way. I learned that. The sun doesn't mean that, like, we named our sun the sun, but if you went to a different solar system and lived in that solar system and had a single star in that solar system, you would more than likely also call it, the proper, like, definition of that would be the sun. You wouldn't call it Bob. Oh, this is Bob. I really miss the sun on Earth, but at least we have Bob here to keep us warm, you know? Like, you wouldn't use that term, you would use the sun. So anyways, I always see an argument like, oh, it's not called the sun, but if that is your solar system, that kind of is the sun. But anyways, it moves around like Space Engineer. So the sun moves, the planets don't. I know some people don't like that, but trust me, for programmer and physics and calculations and the works, it's better than that than them spending 99% of their time working on that and trying to get the performance right and not being able to do anything else. It's just, trust me, it's the way it needs to be. What happens when the world gets old? Will there be still resources? So the world is really big, Smiley. You won't make a dent available in the resources nor space. Keep in mind, like I said, the universe is going to expand. So even if you made a dent, they're going to expand the universe. New resources are going to come into play anyways. You're not going to have an issue. Can a ship burn once and drift to its destination? Can a ship burn? Oh, no. So that's... No, because that's the drag system. No. Drag is in space is an odd choice. Can you explain your reasoning? Gameplay and performance mostly. So when I said gameplay, that's like the balance, and it offers new features to that. Is space drag aerodynamic? No, it's not. Or is it just a flat speed reduction over time? I think so. I think in the seconds would be accurate enough. The force applied to reduce the movement is just dependent on mass, not the shape. So basically the mass of the object. So if it's a really big mass, it does stop faster. We don't know how fast it stops because it kind of is the opposite too. Because if you think of something with a certain drag. Like if you think on Earth, I guess more than anything, you have a 10-ton truck that's going, 100 kilometers an hour, and let's just say you remove all its wheels and it's just dragging on its bottom, and you do the same thing with a car. More than likely the truck will go further because it's heavy mass and it's heavy speed and it's just keeping on going. But then again, the car is lighter, so it might be able to skid longer. So there's kind of we're not quite sure on that. I mean, if you were to stop a truck and a car at the same distance, we know for a fact a car can stop faster. If you compare a truck to a train, we know the truck can stop faster than a train. So it does seem a little weird in our head how that works. So it does sound like a big large battleship all of a sudden can just turn on its brakes, but keep in mind, more likely it's gonna not be able to thruster as fast. So as cool as it sounds like it could be cheaty, like all of a sudden these larger ships can just stop at a dime, they're not going to be able to all of a sudden turn around and jet to max speed instantly. It'll probably take them a lot longer to get motion going again. So keep that, maybe the one way it's a bit cheap, but the other way, they're still going to take a long time to get going again. Are there environmental oh, sorry, I missed this one. Is there a galactic map or a data API for the community to make one? Not at the present, but cool idea. So a galactic map is something I'd like to see eventually. It would be cool for your people and your friends and stuff like that. But the API I like a lot. Just random data being outputted would be cool. People are worried about kill mail and crap like that, which that's up to the community if they really want it. But I shouldn't say it's up to the community because it's up to the devs too how much information they release. But they're not gonna spend time saying, oh, you just killed a ship with 125k parts and it has this much value on the open market. I doubt they're gonna do anything like that anyway. So. Are there environmental hazards? Later, we also introduced dust clouds, nebula, which require proper outer plating. So basically, there is actually other environmental hazards within your ship. So I guess it might not be considered an environmental hazard, but for example, if you have a leak for your propellant, maybe even have, a wire cut or something, electricity might spark out, cause an arc. I don't know about exactly how they're going there, but they want those kind of in-ship hazards. But the hazards in the environment, I like. The dust clouds, nebula is really cool, but keep in mind, real life, a nebula goes, like a young nebula is something like, I don't know, was it like 3,000 light years or something in length? I remember looking up a long time ago, but it's something ridiculous. So I doubt it's a game after all, but I really hope the nebula isn't like, oh, all of a sudden you go into a nebula and you go through it for like 10 minutes and that's it. I really hope it's like something that lasts a very long time, like a whole region of space that you are in is nebula based. So the only way to get in there is to have the proper, it's sort of like playing Subnautica in a sense. To get into the deeper region of the under the water, you have to have a well-enforced ship. I hope that's sort of the idea. So the whole area is affected that way. Cool to even live in and survive if you want to, but it requires really specialty, equipment to survive there. We have plans for various clouds, but currently no ETA. We would actually, no ETA when we'd actually do them. Definitely not at EA launch at least. And by the way, if you ever see quotes at not at EA, it means that EA launch. Almost everything means at EA launch. It doesn't mean after EA, it means basically at EA. The devs, I asked the devs that question actually, just to confirm, and they said like pretty much 99% of what they said is basically, they hope to have it during the EA time sometime. Very few things is way after EA. They haven't even thought of that far in a sense. So most of what you hear is usually their hope to do within the EA period, just not the second EA launches in a sense. So hopefully, you don't get frightened by some of those quotes out there. What would I need to do to protect my ship in a hazardous nebula? So secure outer plating at least to all of them, and since there will be a lot of different nebulas, they will have their own special requirements for the structure, but that's post-EA launch stuff. So that is really cool. That's actually even more exciting. Just think, this part of space you'll need this kind of setup, this part of space you'll need this kind of setup. Maybe new materials will also be unlocked. So this is a really heavy material that's really good for this sort of effect, and this one is for this effect. And so maybe you have to actually go to Nebula 1 to get to Nebula 2, and Nebula 2 to Nebula 3. Hopefully they don't do it just that boring and plain, but you get the idea where you have to get somewhere that's sort of locked down to get another lockdown resource for another place kind of over time. So it gives sort of a bit of a progression, I guess. It could make things really interesting and fun. Are there black holes? It's something we haven't thought of yet, but technically there wouldn't be any issues other than what does it look like? Sorry, what looks like what? I'll get you a big infrared camera. What about, actually, I don't even know if it's an infrared camera. Would you use like infrared camera? Or would you use, no, it would be like sort of like a radio type. I don't know. What about the asteroids? Asteroids are saved and they're saved and they deplete. But there are a lot of them. Players just need to move a bit when one part is eaten up. If that ever happens, they're in a belt around the plane. They are in a belt around the plane. I think belt's diameter is something like 1,400 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers thick. Sorry, 14,000 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers thickness. So there's like a lot of asteroids, and asteroids are permanently gone once mined, broken, or carried away. And like I said, 95 trillion asteroids. And right now, this is the asteroid size. So this is you, and this is probably the models. You can see they have model names from them. So this is like the actual models that they're using. So this is what they look like. Now, keep in mind, I talked to a dev about how this kind of works. So more than likely, if you consume like a quarter of this asteroid and leave it and never come back, or you do come back later on, this asteroid will probably be back where it was as a full shape, or it might just disappear. So I asked, because I was like, are you going to save like all the different data of, oh, you hit this and that, and your save file would be insane over time. And apparently, if it happens temporarily, it'd be more temporarily, maybe saved in the memory, but it's not something long term. So it's not going to be something that saves like that. So their save database all of a sudden is like, well, outside of the 75 trillion entries, it won't be, something insane with all the extra data, basically. So that's cool. Can I move an asteroid? Yes, you can move asteroids. My favorite mining technique is to haul an entire asteroid to a station, cache it as a full asteroid. So from my understanding, if you hand mine an asteroid, you'll get a bit more resources out of it versus just caching in the asteroid. But sometimes I wonder if it's the opposite. So I really don't know. I don't know if there's a clear picture on that yet. Asteroids can be moved, but do not move by themselves. Bonus video, a whole asteroid despawns at an asteroid collection station, revealing the valuable core in the process. So you've seen this video, I think, on my videos before, because I've had it in the background. Basically, it gets chewed up, and then you see the gold-looking material. What parts of the asteroid are valuable? Each voxel is worth something. The outer rock is used mostly to build stations, while the core is used for ships, devices, etc. Depleting on what the core is, but the core is worth 10 to 100 times more than the rock parts. All asteroids contain ore, just need to crack it open and see which. There are faster ways of doing this also, like explosives. I can build a base or a ship inside an asteroid, so not at this time, but when we get tech for bigger asteroids, we'll aim for this, to be able to build inside an asteroid. Making an asteroid to fly as building a ship inside of it is a fun question and might be doable. Have to try it. What kind of resources will we find in space? I think currently have like 20 mineable materials. Here's the inventory icons for the materials and the process ingots. So these are the processed ones here, and these are the materials. So these should match up here. So you can see, yeah, the colors are pretty damn close. So these turn into some kind of bar thing or something. I don't know if this is because of a different kind of chemical makeup or what it means, but and then these are like your ingots, like bars, and this is, I don't know what these are, cylinder storage of some sort, and these are special containers. So I don't quite know what the meaning of them are, but yeah. Here's some of the names. So here's some of the names here. I won't go through this. This is more of a wiki thing since a lot of this is on the wiki now, but good information there. And that's it, I think. We're going to stop here. I kind of shot this one a little further than I was supposed to. Naughty me. But we'll continue next time, and we'll keep going. So thank you guys and girls so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and we'll see you wonderful people next time. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.